The night was supposed to be like any other. The ranch had seen countless births before, but tonight, something felt different. The air was thick with anticipation as the mare, a prized horse on the farm, lay in the straw-covered stall, her body trembling with labor pains. The dim yellow glow of the barn lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the wooden walls. The vet wiped his hands, steadying his breathing. He had delivered foals 100 times before, but something about this one made his hands shake. The mare let out a sharp cry, her muscles straining. The stable workers gathered around, whispering among themselves. The vet crouched lower, carefully guiding the foal's entrance into the world. But as the newborn emerged, something was horribly wrong. The stable hand standing closest gasped. The ranch owner, a man who had seen it all, staggered back, his face draining of color. The foal, if it could even be called that, was unlike anything they had ever seen. The vet's gloved hands trembled as he stared at the newborn, blinking rapidly as if his eyes were playing tricks on him. His heart pounded against his ribs. This wasn't normal. The foal was different. The mother horse, sensing something unnatural, whinnied and tried to stand, but fear flashed in her wild eyes. The air in the barn turned suffocatingly thick. No one spoke. No one moved. And then, the foal let out a cry, a sound so unearthly, so bone-chilling, that the vet nearly dropped it. The stable hand stumbled backward, knocking over a bucket. The ranch owner swore under his breath. The foal's eyes snapped open, and what they saw made their blood run cold. The vet swallowed hard, his pulse hammering in his ears. His hands felt numb, his breath shallow. This wasn't just a difficult birth. This was something else. Something unnatural. Something that shouldn't have been possible. The foal shuddered in his hands, its slick body trembling. But there was something off about the way it moved. The ranch owner finally broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "What the hell is that?" No one had an answer. The barn, once filled with murmurs of excitement, was now deathly silent. Because they all knew, this was no ordinary foal. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong.
The foal lay trembling in the vet's arms, its small body slick with birth fluids. The way it moved was unnatural. The vet felt a chill crawl up his spine. His years of experience told him something was terribly wrong. The ranch owner, his face still pale, took a hesitant step closer. "Vet, what are we looking at here?" His voice was rough, but beneath it was something rare, fear. The stable hand, a young man who had assisted in dozens of births, refused to come any closer. His hands clenched the wooden stall door so tightly his knuckles turned white. The foal twitched, then let out another sound. It wasn't a normal whinny, not even close. It was deeper, guttural, almost distorted. The mare, its mother, let out a panicked neigh and kicked at the stall wall. The thud echoed through the barn, making the hanging tools rattle. Horses in nearby stalls reacted instantly, whinnying, stomping, sensing something unnatural in their midst. The vet swallowed hard and set the foal down on the straw, his hands still shaking. "Vet," the ranch owner pressed again. "Say something." But the vet could barely process what he was seeing. The foal had legs like any other, but its hooves were split in a way they shouldn't be. Its coat was damp and sticky, but the texture was off, as if it had been covered in something thicker than normal birthing fluid. And then there were the eyes. When the foal's eyes snapped open again, the stable hand let out a sharp breath. Pupils that weren't round. Not the usual deep, dark pools of a newborn horse. Instead, they looked almost slitted. A deep silence followed. No one moved. The vet's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "What in God's name?" the stable hand finally muttered, backing up. The vet blinked hard, shaking himself. "We need to get it cleaned up," he said quickly, forcing his mind into medical mode. "Science first. Panic later." The ranch owner hesitated before nodding, though he never took his eyes off the strange foal. The stable hand, still reluctant, grabbed a towel with hesitant fingers and passed it to the vet. The moment the warm cloth touched the foal's skin, it let out a sudden, ear-piercing cry. The mare shrieked in response, kicking the stall walls even harder. The foal twitched violently, its limbs jerking in a way that wasn't natural. The ranch owner jumped back, cursing. The stable hand almost bolted. And then, the barn lights flickered. Not just a little. A full, rapid flickering, like something out of a horror movie. The foal stilled completely. The flickering stopped. The barn fell into complete silence. The ranch owner looked around nervously. What the hell is going on here? The vet didn't answer. He was staring at the foal, no, at the mark forming on its damp coat. A shape was slowly becoming visible, just beneath its skin. It wasn't just a birthmark. It looked intentional. And something about it felt horribly, horribly wrong. Someone needed to explain this. Fast. The vet couldn't take his eyes off the mark forming beneath the foal's skin. It wasn't just an odd discoloration, it had a shape. A pattern. It looked too precise, too deliberate. The stable hand, still clutching the stall door, finally found his voice. That's not normal, right? The vet ignored him, moving closer. His fingers trembled as he wiped away more of the birthing fluids, revealing a distinct symbol. The ranch owner stepped forward cautiously, his breath shallow. Vet, what are we looking at here? The vet didn't answer immediately. Because he knew what he was seeing. He had seen something like it before, but never on a horse. The foal twitched beneath his hands, its breathing uneven. The stable hand, still pale, whispered, "We shouldn't keep it. Something's wrong. It's cursed." The ranch owner shot him a glare. "Don't talk nonsense." But his tone lacked conviction. The foal let out another low, unnatural cry, and the mare responded with panic, stomping wildly in her stall. She didn't recognize her own baby. She was afraid of it. Something about that sent a deep, uncomfortable feeling into the pit of the vet's stomach. "We need to take a step back," he said finally, wiping his damp hands on his pants. "I need to examine it properly. But first, I need to understand where this horse came from." The ranch owner's face darkened. "What do you mean?" The vet turned to him. "You said this mare was bought under unusual circumstances. What did you mean by that?" The stable hand flinched. The ranch owner's jaw clenched. He looked away for a long moment before exhaling. "I never wanted to say much about it," he admitted. "But I didn't get her through normal channels." The stable hand's eyes widened. "What?" The vet kept his gaze steady. "Explain." The ranch owner sighed, rubbing his temples. "A few years ago, a guy came to me, offering the mare for nearly nothing. Said he just needed her gone. She was in great shape, good breed. I didn't ask questions. I should have." The vet's chest tightened. "Did you ever find out why he wanted to get rid of her?" The ranch owner hesitated before nodding. "I did. But not until it was too late." Silence fell over the barn. The vet swallowed. "Tell me." The ranch owner exhaled slowly. "He told me she was part of something experimental." The stable hand cursed under his breath. The vet felt the hairs on his arms rise. "Experimental?" he repeated. The ranch owner nodded. "Said she was part of a breeding project. Something not entirely legal. But I thought he was just exaggerating. I thought he was trying to get rid of her fast, and I got a damn good deal." The vet turned back to the foal, the symbol on its coat still glaring back at him. This wasn't a random birth defect. This was designed. The foal wasn't normal. And whatever was behind this was bigger than just a horse. The barn felt colder now, despite the summer night air drifting through the open doors. The vet stood in silence, staring at the foal. The mark on its body still glowed faintly under the dim barn lights. The shape wasn't random, it was deliberate, precise, and disturbingly familiar. The ranch owner's words echoed in his head. She was part of something experimental. The stable hand shifted nervously. "This ain't right," he mumbled. "That mare's been fine this whole time, but now she births this?" He pointed at the foal, his voice shaking. "And you're telling me she came from some illegal breeding program?" The ranch owner's expression hardened. "I don't know the details," he admitted, "but something tells me we weren't supposed to let this birth happen." The vet knelt again, touching the foal's trembling body. Its skin was unusually warm, hotter than a newborn should be. Its small chest rose and fell rapidly, like it was struggling to breathe. "We need to get it stable," the vet said firmly, pushing aside his unease. "If this foal was part of something unnatural, I need to know what was done to it." The stable hand took another step back. "I say we put it down." The vet's head snapped up. "What?" The stable hand's face was pale as he wiped his sweaty hands on his shirt. "I've been working with horses since I was a kid. I know what a normal foal looks like. That thing," he swallowed. "That thing ain't normal. And it ain't meant to live." The ranch owner remained quiet. The vet turned to him. "You agree with this?" The ranch owner rubbed his jaw. "I don't know what I agree with," he admitted. "But I do know that whatever's going on here, it ain't right." The foal whimpered, struggling to lift its head. Its tiny legs trembled as it tried to stand. And then it happened. The barn lights flickered again, but this time, they didn't stop. The hanging bulbs swung, casting jagged shadows on the walls. The mare screamed in terror, thrashing wildly in her stall. The stable hand bolted toward the door. "I'm not staying here." The ranch owner grabbed his arm. "You're not going anywhere." Then, from outside, a truck's engine rumbled to life. The three men froze. No one else was supposed to be here. The vet's stomach twisted. "Who's out there?" The ranch owner cursed and rushed to the barn door, peering into the darkness. The distant truck was idling just beyond the fence. Headlights flicked on, shining directly at the barn. Someone was watching them. The stable hand whispered, "You think they know?" The ranch owner clenched his jaw. "They know." The vet's heart pounded. The foal wasn't just an accident. Someone had been waiting for this birth. And now, they were here. The ranch owner gritted his teeth, his gaze fixed on the distant truck. The headlights pierced through the dark, illuminating the dust in the air. The engine rumbled low, steady, like whoever was inside wasn't in a hurry. The stable hand whispered, "They know." The vet's pulse quickened. "Who are they?" The ranch owner exhaled sharply. "I don't know. But I got a bad feeling we don't want to find out." Inside the barn, the foal let out a soft, strangely human-like whimper. The vet turned back toward it. The mare was still wild with panic, her eyes rolling as she stomped against the stall walls. The other horses, usually calm even in storms, were restless, sensing something unnatural in their midst. The stable hand backed up, shaking his head. "We shouldn't be messing with this thing. We need to get rid of it before." The truck's engine suddenly cut off. A suffocating silence followed. The vet's breath hitched. "They're coming." The ranch owner grabbed a shotgun from behind the barn door, pumping it once. The stable hand's eyes widened. "You serious?" The ranch owner's voice was cold. "You want to let them walk in and take whatever the hell they want?" The barn doors creaked just slightly in the wind. No one moved. Then, a knock. Not loud. Controlled. Precise. The vet swallowed hard. "They're not here to negotiate." The knock came again, firmer this time. Then a voice. "Open the door." It wasn't a demand. It was an order. Calm. Unshaken. The vet turned to the ranch owner. "What do we do?" The ranch owner didn't answer. Another knock. Harder. "We know what you have inside." The stable hand shuddered. Jesus. The ranch owner tightened his grip on the shotgun. I don't know who the hell you are, but I ain't got time for. Bang. The barn door shuddered violently. Someone was trying to break in. The stable hand let out a panicked curse, grabbing a pitchfork. The vet rushed toward the foal, instinctively trying to shield it. The foal twitched again, its tiny body unnaturally hot to the touch. And then, the mark on its coat pulsed. Not a trick of the light. It moved. The vet gasped, jerking his hand away. The foal let out a sharp, inhuman cry. And the men outside? They stopped. No more knocking. No more banging. Just silence. Then, the truck engine roared back to life. The headlights flashed twice. And just as suddenly as they had come, they were gone. The barn fell into eerie stillness. The only sound was the panicked breathing of the horses and the rapid thud of the vet's heart. The stable hand was the first to speak. They just left? The vet stared at the foal, his mind racing. They heard it, he whispered. The ranch owner swallowed thickly. And that means one thing. The vet turned to him, his pulse still racing. They're coming back. The barn remained deathly silent, except for the distant hum of the truck fading into the night. The stable hand exhaled sharply, his fingers still clenched around the pitchfork. The ranch owner lowered the shotgun but didn't let go. The vet's gaze flicked back to the foal. It was breathing fast, too fast. Its tiny body trembled, and the mark on its coat had stopped moving, but the memory of it shifting sent another chill down his spine. The stable hand muttered, "They left, just like that?" The ranch owner's jaw tightened. No. That wasn't them leaving. That was them giving us a warning. The vet finally spoke. They didn't expect the foal to react like that. The men stood in uneasy silence, the truth settling between them. They hadn't just witnessed something unnatural, they had witnessed something that someone else already knew about. And they wanted it back. The stable hand finally spoke up, voice raw with fear. We gotta get rid of it. The vet snapped his head toward him. No. The stable hand shook his head, backing up. You don't get it. This thing ain't supposed to be here. I've heard stories, man. Ranches that take in animals they shouldn't. Owners disappearing. Whole barns burned down with no explanation. The ranch owner narrowed his eyes. And where exactly did you hear these stories? The stable hand hesitated, then swallowed. My uncle. He used to work at a ranch down south. Said one night, a man showed up offering to sell him a horse, a cheap, strong-blooded one, just like you said. He took the deal, and 2 months later, that horse gave birth to something that wasn't natural. Just like this. The vet's stomach twisted. The stable hand continued, not long after, men in black trucks showed up. They told him it was a mistake, that the birth wasn't supposed to happen. They offered him money to keep quiet. And when he refused, he swallowed hard. His entire ranch burned down a week later. He barely made it out. The barn fell into an uneasy silence. The ranch owner exhaled. And you think this is the same thing? The stable hand nodded. I know it is. The vet turned back to the foal. The mark on its skin. The unnatural heat. The eerie cry that had made even those men stop in their tracks. There were too many coincidences. And one chilling fact remained, whatever was happening here, it wasn't the first time. The vet made a decision. We can't just let them take it. The stable hand gaped. Are you insane? The vet ignored him. He turned to the ranch owner. If we let them take the foal, we'll never find out what's really going on. And whatever they're doing, it won't stop. They'll keep experimenting, keep playing God. And no one will ever know. The ranch owner was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, he exhaled. We don't have long, he admitted. If they wanted to take it by force, they could have. They're waiting. The stable hand muttered, waiting for what? The ranch owner looked down at the foal. For it to change. The vet's breath hitched. What do you mean? The ranch owner's expression darkened. They weren't here for the birth. He nodded toward the foal. They're waiting to see what it becomes. The vet's blood ran cold. Whatever was happening, it wasn't over yet. The foal twitched again, its tiny chest rising and falling at an unnatural pace. The vet watched closely, his hands hovering just above its damp coat. He could still feel the unnatural heat radiating from its body. The stable hand backed further away, shaking his head. I ain't stayin' for this. You wanna play hero, go ahead. But I ain't dyin' for some cursed horse. The ranch owner's gaze didn't leave the foal. Nobody's dyin'. The stable hand scoffed, gesturing toward the doors. You think they just drove off and gave up? They're out there, watchin'. Waitin'. And when they come back, they're not knockin'. They're talkin' what they came for, and they won't care who's in their way. The vet clenched his jaw. He knew the stable hand was right. Whoever those men were, they weren't done here. The foal shifted again. Then, without warning, it tried to stand. The vet's breath hitched. Newborns didn't stand this quickly. It took time. Strength. Yet this foal pushed itself upright, wobbling but determined. And then, it looked at them. The vet's stomach dropped. The foal's eyes were no longer slitted. The odd mutation that had startled them before was gone. The stable hand stammered, "What the hell?" The foal's entire coat had changed. The strange, unnatural markings had faded before their eyes. The heat from its body was vanishing. The ranch owner took a slow step forward. It's normal. The vet shook his head. No. This isn't normal. It's adapting. The stable hand cursed under his breath. Adapting to what? The vet's mind raced. He had heard of certain animals changing their appearance for survival, chameleons blending into their environment, Arctic foxes changing their fur color with the seasons. But this? This was happening in real time. The foal took another shaky step, its tiny hoof steadying. It lifted its head toward the open barn doors, toward the darkness outside. Like it knew someone was there. The ranch owner whispered, they were waiting for this. The vet turned to him. Waiting for what? The ranch owner exhaled. For it to become one of theirs. A chill ran through the vet. And then, the barn doors burst open. The truck had returned. But this time, they weren't alone. Silhouettes moved against the night. More than before. Many more. They had come to claim what was theirs. And they weren't leaving without it. The barn doors slammed against the walls, rattling in their wooden frames. The ranch owner tightened his grip on the shotgun, his stance firm. The vet instinctively stepped in front of the foal, shielding it with his body. Outside, several dark figures moved with eerie precision. Their boots crunched against the gravel, their shadows stretching across the dirt like something out of a nightmare. The stable hand let out a shaking breath. We're screwed. The vet whispered, not yet. A man stepped forward, dressed in an expensive black coat. Unlike the others, he wasn't armed, but he carried an authority that made the hair on the vet's neck stand up. He stopped just at the entrance, his face unreadable. We don't want trouble. His voice was too calm. Too controlled. The ranch owner scoffed, cocking the shotgun. You smashed my barn door open. That tells me otherwise. The man's gaze flicked to the foal. His expression didn't change, but the vet saw something in his eyes. Recognition. Possession. That animal does not belong to you, the man said. The vet's heart pounded. What is it? The man's lips twitched slightly, as if amused. It's an anomaly. The ranch owner huffed. That ain't an answer. The man finally showed the first real sign of emotion, a slow, deliberate smirk. It's the result of years of genetic engineering. A biological project that was never meant to see the light of day. His gaze returned to the foal. But you let it be born. And now, you have something we need. The vet clenched his fists. It's a living creature. Not your property. The man's eyes darkened. That foal was designed for a purpose. You keeping it here disrupts that purpose. It must come with us. The stable hand whispered, they ain't a skin dot. The vet glanced at the foal. It was still standing, still watching, as if it understood what was happening. The ranch owner didn't lower the shotgun. I don't give a damn what experiments you ran. This horse was born here. It stays here. The man sighed, looking mildly disappointed. He raised a hand. Behind him, several of the men stepped forward. The vet's stomach dropped. They were going to take it, by force. The foal suddenly let out a sound, not a whimper, not a cry. Something deeper. More controlled. More intelligent. And the men froze. The man in the black coat narrowed his eyes. Fascinating. The foal took a step forward, its tiny body shifting subtly again. The unnatural glow in its eyes returned, just for a moment, before fading once more. The man tilted his head. It's evolving faster than we anticipated. The stable hand whispered, what the hell is this thing? The vet had no answers. But he knew one thing, this foal was more than an experiment. It was learning. Adapting. Becoming something new. And the men outside weren't just here to retrieve it. They were afraid of what it could become. The man in the black coat turned back to the ranch owner. Last chance. Give it to us, and we walk away. No trouble. No consequences. The ranch owner didn't move. The vet's pulse pounded in his ears. He knew that if they handed over the foal now, they would never see it again. And the world would never know the truth. The foal let out another sound, louder, more powerful. The man's expression flickered, a moment of hesitation. And then, the barn lights shattered. Sparks rained down, illuminating the darkened figures outside for just a second before plunging everything into darkness. Then, chaos. The horses screamed, hooves stomping wildly against the ground. The stable hand let out a yell, ducking behind a stack of hay bales. The vet instinctively threw himself over the foal, shielding it from whatever came next. The ranch owner, gripping the shotgun, fired a warning shot into the night. The blast echoed through the barn, but the men outside didn't flinch. Instead, the man in the black coat laughed. You still don't understand, do you? His voice was unnervingly calm, even in the chaos. This isn't about possession. It's about control. The vet's breath came fast and uneven. He turned his head toward the foal, and what he saw sent a fresh jolt of shock through his body. The foal was changing again. Its breathing steadied. The glow in its eyes intensified for a moment, before disappearing completely. Its coat, once marked with something unnatural, now looked normal. Perfectly, completely normal. The vet realized what had just happened. It wasn't just adapting. It was camouflaging. Hiding itself. The foal had instinctively concealed its own unnatural traits, as if it knew it was being hunted. And then, it moved. In one fluid, impossibly fast motion, it darted out from under him, its tiny legs carrying it straight toward the barn doors. Right toward the men in the black truck. The vet's heart stopped. No. The ranch owner lunged for it, but the foal was too fast. The men outside tensed, expecting to intercept it. But the foal didn't stop. Instead, it ran right past them. Straight into the darkness. The headlights flickered as the foal vanished into the night. For the first time, the man in the black coat looked unsettled. This isn't over, he muttered, turning toward the ranch owner. That thing won't survive on its own. It will come back. The ranch owner lowered his shotgun. His voice was steady. You don't know that. The man gave him a long, searching look before nodding once to his men. Without another word, they climbed back into their truck. The engine roared to life. And just like that, they were gone. The barn was eerily quiet again. The stable hand exhaled a shaky breath. What just happened? The vet was still staring at the open barn doors. He had spent his entire career saving animals, understanding them. But he had never encountered anything like that full. The ranch owner finally turned to him. What now? The vet took a deep breath. We let it be free. The stable hand scoffed. And what if it ain't normal? What if it's something unnatural? The vet met his gaze. Then that's not for us to decide. Because the truth was, nature always found a way. Some creatures were never meant to be controlled. Some things were bigger than science, bigger than men in black trucks and their experiments. Some things were meant to run wild. And that foal, whatever it was, whatever it had been made for, had just made its choice. It was free. And it was never coming back. Life lesson. There are forces in life that cannot be controlled, no matter how hard we try. Some things are meant to follow their own path, free from the hands that seek to own them. True strength isn't in domination, it's in letting go.